Well, after India edged out Pakistan in the match watched by millions, it's time to Ask George. And a reminder that you can follow all George's reports at thecricketer.com and all of our great content by subscribing for just $3.99 a month. And you get all of our great content. So let's get going. Um, First up, Rick Walton. Was the drama as much a failure of nerve from Pakistan on a sticky wicket under significant pressure as it was about the brilliance of India?
Probably was, wasn't it? I mean, you'd have to say that Bumrah was a huge point of difference between the sides. But however good Bumrah is, Rizwan, he's played a bad shot, hasn't he? He's played a poor shot from a position where you want your senior player to just show that he's got a calm head and see the side home. So I do think that is probably fair. You don't want to take anything away from how good India were there towards the end, but I don't know. There were no balls as well. At the point just where you think, oh, India are back in control. I thought they might like and let it slip, but clearly there were a lot of nerves. There was a lot of pressure, and Pakistan wilted under it. I don't think that's taking anything away from how good Bumrah in particular was.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Well, you were there, but no, you tell
Yeah,
me.
sure, sure. Well, I mean, my thought was at the time that Rizwan obviously played that shot. Had they been sort of 10 runs ahead and had he been a little bit more aggressive earlier on, maybe he wouldn't have needed to play that shot because it wasn't a percentage shot, was it? Swinging across the line to
No.
Jasprit Bumrah on a pitch that's doing a bit and staying low. It's not a percentage shot, is it? So that was
Was
my
it the
feeling at the
first?
time.
It was the first ball of his new spell as well, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, I
Funny
mean,
enough,
it doesn't really.
go on, sorry.
Well, it doesn't really work on any level. I suppose he's trying to hit Bumrah off his line or something. But I, I, when you're chasing a target that small, I think you probably can just accept that Bumrah's going to bowl four cheap overs and go for it off the others. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the defining moment.
It certainly felt like it. I mean, I'm going to name drop terribly here, but I was sat next to Neil Manthorpe in the press box, and we both turned to each other and said, "This is the game here." And then first ball, stumps flying out the ground. So, yeah,
Also,
it was.
there was a whole over of missed cut shots, wasn't there? I mean, I don't think Pakistan played very well.
No. And until Nassim Shah played the sort of ramp shot, there wasn't really much attempt to sort of play on orthodox shots as well. They were trying to stand there and whack it really, the tail. Um, yeah,
On a pitch
wasn't
which
good.
wasn't well suited to that at all. But as you say, they shouldn't have got themselves into that position. When you're chasing, basically a runner ball from the start, they should never have let it get to the stage where it was getting to 10 and over.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Tom Vickers, how great is it to see Rishabh Pant just playing, never mind so well? That catch was pretty special, particularly given what must have been a hard recovery.
Tom's spot on. I mean, Rishabh Pant's obviously been through a horrible time of things, really, really serious accidents, very serious injuries, and a very long way back. And just from a human nature point of view, it's lovely that he is able to fulfill the dreams of his talent, his huge talent. I think we sometimes forget what goes on away from the pitch, and obviously all his aspirations would have felt a long way away at some, in recent times. So it's a similar story with Jofra Archer. Maybe his injuries haven't been quite as dramatic, but they've been horrible and career threatening, and he would have been left wondering what he's going to do with his life, when your whole focus of everything you wanted is suddenly taken from you. But Pant showed just what a fantastic player he is. A good catch, dangerous batter, explosive batter. Really lovely to see, and I think that even Pakistan supporters would agree with that.
Hmm. I think, funnily enough, the sort of dimension suited him in a way because such unusual dimensions of that ground and the way he plays, hitting the ball in unusual areas. There were sort of so many pockets on the field for him to use. It sort of worked to his advantage, I think, in a way. And I guess in hindsight, he was the one player that sort of dragged the game above a runner ball in a way. So yeah, it was pretty incredible. Rohan Kulkarni asks, is Jasprit Bumrah the best fast bowler of all time, considering his contributions, impact and consistency across all three formats?
Of all time's pretty strong. and it may be. I don't think the question's ridiculous. Actually,
No.
if I were asked to pick a world 11 now, he'd be in it in every corner. He'd be the first bowler I picked. Um, I actually had this conversation over dinner with colleagues last night, and I think he's the only one that everyone would agree
Mm.
on. All time, I mean, I don't know. It, it, I don't know. Actually, that's the honest answer, but it's not a ridiculous thing to say because the uniqueness of the action is hugely testing. The control he has with it, and the variety of skills. There's masses to like. But if you're looking at the guy, just look at limited overs cricket, which has changed massively. He's up against what was in Waka, Joel Garner. Mitchell Stark in this competition. I think Mitchell Stark's incredible bowler. Maybe better in ODIs than T20, but um, so I don't know about all time, and it's probably ridiculous to compare. But it's the fact that you've even asked the question and we're not just dismissing it shows how special a bowler he is. Unquestionably, I'd say he's the number one in the world at the moment.
A couple of people have asked, do Pakistan need a rebuild after the T20 World Cup? And obviously, they've got two new coaches anyway.
Well, they have, but I don't know the answer because I don't. That's not criticising them. It's just to say that I think their problems are a bit more structural. I mean, there are all sorts of issues, aren't there? They do require a rebuild, yes. I think it's pretty clear that Baba doesn't have the unstinted support in his dressing room. I think it's clear that the years of not playing in the IPL are catching up with them. I don't know why they have such a lack of spin options. I would think Osama Mir should be there, but I can't remember a time when Pakistan have had such modest spin bowling. And the batting is well very modest as well. So yes, they're in a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Imad Wasim, I thought bowled well yesterday. But it's the batting mainly, isn't it? I think that's just they just seems to lack the invention and the sort of raw power of the best teams in the world that are probably playing. Their players are playing IPL, aren't they? So is that the difference? Do you think?
No, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, for one thing, you've had Mohammed Amir, for example, in a TV studio criticising the team for 18 months and then come straight back into it. Brilliant bowler though he has been, that must be quite tough to manage. I think whatever way you look at Pakistan cricket, it's a mess. If you look at the selection, if you look at the board, the way it changes so radically from month to month, really. No, it needs a period of calm. And
Danny Franklin asked, will this match boost interest in cricket throughout the USA, or was it a cynical ploy to extract the most money possible from a wealthy, undeserved, and small population of existing fans?
I think there are legitimate reasons to try and explore and open up that market. When I worked at Cricinfo, there were days when the audience from America would be second biggest in the world, and would very often be within the top four. So there is a large, mainly expat audience from either the Caribbean or Asia who are already interested. And why wouldn't other Americans fall in love with cricket? It's a great game. So I don't think it's ridiculous. And the tickets, the average ticket price was in the thousands, wasn't it? Did I see? I mean, ridiculous. And they're going to spoil that anyway because of playing that game too often. But I don't think it's ridiculous to try and embrace the American market, and I don't think it's ridiculous to think that they'll fall in love with it.
Hmm. I guess both of those things can be true at the same
They'd have a
time.
better chance of doing it on a better wicket. It's weird to spend all that money. Sorry, it's weird to spend all that money and not get the pitches right. As ever with cricket, you've got to get the fundamentals right, haven't you?
Hmm.
And the other thing they're going to think in America is that it's pretty weird to not have a roof. Because it rained at the start of the game, didn't it? Or around the scheduled toss time. And I just don't know that, that people are going to put up with that in the future.
I think they got away with it in a way because we had sort of two or three heavy downpours, but it wasn't prolonged. And if it had gone on longer, with overs being reduced, suddenly those tickets worth thousands of pounds are not looking great value, are they? So they got away with it in that way. Um, I think more. It's more that I mean, this game they can almost charge what they like, but with some of the other games, some of the ticket prices have been just too high, and there's some strange decisions like Canada against Ireland is on at 10:30 in the morning here. Surely that's not a game to aim at the subcontinental audience, is it? Really? You think they could have put that in the afternoon and got more fans in, And actually, Netherlands, South Africa, there was a lot of people there, 15,000 people there on a Saturday, a lot of West Indians there actually. But if that had been held in the afternoon, there could have been even more people there. So it's just everything seems to be geared towards the subcontinental TV market, and you can understand it at times, but at other times it's like, well, this is going a bit too far. Is my view.
Well, yeah, it's a really good point. So for the same thing, um, Uganda played their first World Cup match, and I reckon it started at 3:30 a.m. Uganda time. So the idea of having a 20-team tournament, I love it. I really think that's great. But you're not really following through on the nice idea, are you? If you're scheduling it at 3:30 a.m., you are not finding new supporters unless you're really looking at the sort of all-night labour market or people who can't sleep. Are they the future? Maybe it's a
Mm.
brilliant ICC plan to manipulate that market, exploit them, keep them up all night. Brilliant. Genius. No one else is doing that.
Yeah. But yeah, some of the stories that people were saying about what they'd paid for tickets, $2,500, it was absolutely staggering. And they for $2,500, you expect 5-course meal, the finest caviar, oysters, you expect everything, don't you? So and they weren't getting that, I don't think so. Yeah, it's a lot of money. And last thing, George, obviously you're in Antigua, with the beautiful waves lapping behind you. But England have got to somehow make up this massive net run rate deficit in the next two games. What are your sort of overriding feelings about their chances of doing that right now?
I think they're in real trouble. I think they're in real trouble. I mean, the deficit's about 4 points, isn't it? Um, so they need to win both games, and I don't know why anyone would be particularly overly confident about that. And I mean, they should obviously, but and then they need Scotland to lose very heavily to Australia. That game's happening after the England games, so I don't know. I don't think that's very clever scheduling. Not complaining about it from an English point of view, but you would think that the last game should probably start as they would in football at the same time, so people can't in any way be tempted. Also, there's no suspicion that there's any gamesmanship or anything like that, and I don't think that will happen. By the way, I don't think Australia know how to try not to win or not to win big. I don't think that's part of their sporting vocabulary at all, to be honest. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. But I do think England have masses to do. And I think they're just realising it now. They're taking the day off today, which is fine. I think they're sticking to what they do, which is to try and take pressure off, to trust in themselves, to be relaxed and confident and happy. But I don't know, it hasn't worked in the 50 over World Cup. It hasn't worked great so far. They're right on the edge though. They can do it, but personally, I think it looks really tough.
I mean, is Reece? I mean, is Reece Topley going to come in for starters? Is that the obvious change? Do you think?
Well, it was the obvious change before the last game, and they didn't make it. So I hope so. I think it was more obvious before the Australia game because of his record against left-handers and just the variation that was required. But they seem, they're really, really captivated by the pace options they have. And you'll notice that Jofra Archer, who is a fantastic limited overs bowler, obviously, bowled his variations most. How many balls after his first over were flat out pace? Of the next 18, I did write it down, but I doubt it was more than six. So, and Mark Wood basically, he has a bit of a slow ball now, but basically it's just pace on. And Australia play pace so well. You're brought up in Australia on quick wickets. So many big, strong guys bowling pace. I don't understand how they got that so wrong, really, but Yeah, so I think Topley should come in and they have a decision to make about Johnny Bairstow, who, I think maybe when we look back in his career, we'll look back on that terrible accident on the golf course and wonder if that was the end, really, because he just hasn't been able to get it back. And he had a very poor game, didn't he? The second game in Barbados. He looked off the pace of the field with the bat, and they have a decision to make there. Maybe bring Harry Brook up the order, bring Ben Duckett in. Don't know. It's not great to not know what you're doing at this stage of the tournament when you need to make up the run rate so much. I think they're going to be okay for the rain. There is rain forecast, but look at it. It's not horrible, is it? And so I think that will be okay. But they've left themselves, everything looks so difficult. Um, and yeah, some of it was avoidable, I think. Look, they did not start well against Scotland. They didn't start brilliantly, and Australia outplayed them. So it's not just bad luck, you know? Yeah, a lot to do. I'm not even sure it's as good as 50-50, their chances.
And last question, Antigua, other than having a beach for every day of the year, what are the sort of conditional differences at the ground compared to Barbados?
I don't think it will be quite as windy because the ground is in more of a bowl. Uh, Generally, it's drier, but I've never been here at this time of year before, and it's incredibly green and beautiful, actually. Um, it's got a bigger playing surface, and I don't think there'll be as many people. But in the stands, I mean. So there's a few things. I mean, generally, it has been a slower, lower wicket. The Australia match was played on an okay wicket. It wasn't quick by any means, but I think it will be low, slow, and maybe turn a bit. Um, yeah, so I think it will be a bit different. So there could, I guess, be a case for bringing in Hartley as another spinner, but with the spin options they already have, they've got four in the side already. I don't know that you need another one.
Well, it's going to be an interesting few days in Antigua, and it's going to be an interesting few days in New York as well, because Pakistan obviously playing Canada tomorrow. Absolutely massive game for them now, and the USA playing India as well. And obviously, USA sitting top of that group at the moment, so which is an amazing story. So the next few days of the World Cup are going to be absolutely fascinating. You can subscribe at thecricketer.com to everything that George and myself are writing from the tournament, and it's been a pleasure to bring this to you today. And look forward to doing it the rest of the tournament. All the best. Take care.